Is project number 38. So you've got now such a fantastic range of patterns to choose from on our Making It Monday page on the website. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, if you go to lizzycurtis.com, and on the front page there's lots of boxes and they take you to different parts of the shop, and one of those boxes is shop MIMS. So if all you have to do is go to the website, look for shop MIMS, click that, and that takes you into the MIMS shop, and all of the patterns are there for Making It Monday. I don't even know how many there are now. I would say it's a good couple of hundred. I don't know, I'll have to count them up. But yeah, so lots and lots of patterns to choose from. Good evening, everybody. Hi to Gemma and to Kath and to Caroline, who Kath and I saw on Saturday, to Linda and Jackie and Debbie and Anne and Melba. Welcome all. Lots of you coming in now, which is lovely. So so we're on MIM number 38 for 2022, and we're sort of in that Halloweeny harvest festival sort of month, aren't we, in October, where the colour tones tend to be quite similar to September, but we go more sort of purples and blacks, and bring in the fruits of our harvest, which can be included in our work, of course. So most of the patterns this month, I will be doing too, and our Kath will be doing too, will be based on those types of fabrics, sort of like I say, harvest festival type fabrics. And I think I haven't spoken to Kath actually, but I think we're both working with a Moda jelly roll. Now, I've seen one or two people say, what is a jelly roll? Well, obviously, you see, I'm a bit complacent because I thought everybody would know what that was. And of course, not everybody knows what that is. So Moda is a brand, and their design roll, their strips that they put together are called jelly rolls, and it's a sort of a trademark. You're not allowed to call anything else a jelly roll. So so I'm allowed to do that because that's what I'm using. It's a Moda jelly roll, and if you get anything else that's 2.5-inch strips, whatever the quantity, they are called, pretty much they're called design rolls. Lots of people actually have invented their own names for them, but a jelly roll is a trademark, so we can't say that about other brands. Hopefully that clears that up. And it's what it usually is 2.5-inch strips of their entire range. So this range that I'm using is called Halloween, Holiday Essentials Halloween, 2.5-inch strips. I think there's probably 40. I can't remember how many there are. I'm just looking at the label. But usually 40, and there's usually 2 or 3 of each strip, and it's part of a collection, so they all tend to work very well together, either colour wise or design wise. But yeah, you'll see as you get more experienced, maybe if you're not already, that they're a good source. And it's always interesting to see projects made from jelly rolls, from design rolls, because they tend to be quite sort of strippy, like our lovely bag here. And it actually reminds me of one I made a few years ago in blues, and that was really, really pretty. I have no idea where it is now. So tonight we're going to be making Bessie. There's the pattern front, so you can see what Bessie looks like. And it's quite a comprehensive pattern, this one. For a Making It Monday pattern, we tend to try and keep them not complicated. That's the idea, that they're fairly, I'm not going to say basic because that's not quite right, but they're much more easier to put together than perhaps one of my other patterns or one of Kath's other patterns. Those tend to be quite complicated, and you obviously pay more for those, usually £5.99, but a Making It Monday pattern is just £1, and the reason it's £1 is because we want you to sew, we want you to make things, and depending on what the pattern is will depend on how many of you participate, if you like. And oftentimes we have people sewing along with me. Now, just a word of warning to Diana and maybe Marge. There might be one or two others. I don't want to miss anybody out. I have stitched my strips together. Okay, I've already prepared my fabric because it would take too long otherwise. So be aware of that. So while I'm chatting just for a moment, you could start putting yours together. So that's what we're going to be making. Inside the pattern, it tells you exactly what you need to prepare, what you need to use, if you like, what type wadding, how much you need of that, and all that sort of thing. So, like I say, it's quite comprehensive for a pattern for £1. Also in the back, you got the QR code to take you back to my website should you wish to do that in 6 months' time, whatever. And also after tonight, if you go back into the product online, you'll get the QR code for the video. But obviously you'll always find it in the MIM video tutorials on the website. So I try to tick every box that I can think of to make it easier for you. Because I know sometimes it's difficult for people to find things. But hopefully we've ticked all of those boxes for you to make all of the Making It Monday projects a lot easier. So I'll just get my screen up on my laptop here. I don't think I've got it on sound. That's it. And then I can see what I'm doing there, and I can see some comments if I need to. So welcome to everybody on YouTube, and welcome to everybody on Facebook. There's lots of people watching already. We're well over 200, and a mixture of both, a big mixture of YouTube and Facebook, which is lovely. So there we are. So we're going to make Bessie. I'm going to stop rabbiting and get on with it. Now you can see the camera behind me here. There, that black pole. Now the reason for that is we're going to be making a buttonhole. It's the first time I think ever we've done a buttonhole on a Making It Monday project. So it's nice to do a new technique. Now because we've all got different sewing machines, and we've all got different buttonhole feet, because depending on your machine will depend on what sort of foot it is. I'm going to do this the real old-fashioned way. This is a technique, if you're the same age as me, that you were taught, like 50 years ago. So it's actually very simple, but it takes a wee bit of concentration. So I've got the camera really close up on the foot of my machine, and I hope that you'll be able to see what I'm doing, and I'll do it really slowly, and I'll do it really carefully, and I'll talk through each bit slowly and carefully too. The rest of it is actually quite a doddle, really. So I shall start off by showing you overhead what everything looks like. So if we sort of switch to that view, we start off piecing 5 strips together. Now obviously you can create your own strips. You don't have to get a design roll or a jelly roll of any sort whatsoever, but it's good to have the 2.5-inch strips because the pattern actually kind of matches this. Now this is my prototype pattern, so you'll have to forgive me for all the lines and what have you, but it kind of fits the strip roll fairly well, depending on your seam allowances always. So you've got a fighting chance of getting that bit right in the middle. So in the pattern I show you how to position it on your fabric, so you'll waste about that much of your outer strip. Okay, any wider I don't think it would work, and I don't know, that's me personally, but you could obviously take it out further if you want to. Alexandria says, love the fabric. Do you know what? This is really lovely. I love Halloween fabrics because they're a little bit more interesting, I think, sometimes than autumn fabrics, because we tend to have little creatures and pumpkins and ghosties and things like that. Quite nice. Yeah, so you're going to put your 5 strips together. You're going to press them over to one side with a design roll, jelly roll. They come with a pinked edge, so just ignore that. Still try and keep to your 1/4 inch. I know sometimes it is a bit tricky, but push them all over one way. That's why not? And or you could open up the seams should you wish to distribute the weight, but to be perfectly honest, it's only one layer, if you like, really, and some wadding. I've used H640. Now for those people that don't know what H640 looks like, it's a polyester. I'm going to bring it in. I've got it on the back of my other piece actually, and it actually sticks to the fabric. So this is my scrap from the other bit, bit that I did, but it's got glue dots here, and I obviously haven't pressed right up to the edge. It doesn't matter because I'd used this end rather than that end. Yeah, so it's got glue dots here, and with the heat of the iron on this side, on your fabric side, it actually glues all your layers together, and it's actually quite easy to use rather than wadding that you're going to spray. You can use whatever you like, but this is H640, so it's a little bit more loftier, you can see that. There is another one that's slightly thinner, which is I think H630. Matters not, whichever you've got to hand. Don't go and buy anything special. Even an old fleecy top cut would be a perfect lining for it, so don't worry about it. So that's what H640 is. So you can see the sort of wadding and batting, whatever I've used, and you're going to make up your strips. I give you the measurements in the pattern of roughly how long you need it. It's more than enough. And then you're going to put a whole strip of wadding on the back of this, and then iron the whole thing down, iron from the front. And that protects the wadding because it is polyester wadding. I'm not a keen fan on polyester, but actually it really works well for these sort of projects. So that's you made up with that. So we can put that to one side now. And we may well use some of these scrappy bits to make the last project, because I don't want to waste. Now the other thing I've done with mine, I'll just bring one of my pieces in, is that I've got the two blacks on the outside, then the oranges with the pussycats, and then the white ghost in the middle. And what I've done with this and the other one is that I've used another strip of the ghost to make up for the strap. Okay, and if I bring the one in that I've made, so you can see, it looks quite nice that the strap, there we are, you can see the strap matches that centre strip, and we've got two here, and in actual fact we've got two there. So for me that works. You may want to use something different, that's entirely up to you. It's got a nice little sort of sorry about my edges not meeting. If I put my finger there you won't know, ish. But don't dwell on it. So it's got a nice sort of puffy bottom, really. It's lovely and squidgy. It's really quite nice, and it sits really quite well. I've got a bit of wadding in here to pad it out. And you can see we've got the buttonhole and the button in the centre, and that's the main thing that we're going to learn tonight, of how to do your own buttonhole. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Yeah, and get a nice bright button. I'm using white tonight because I've got the ghost fabric, but a nice bright button, something decorative, but something to do with your fabric, and pick a colour out. The straps are really simple. They're literally folded and stitched and then placed on the side seams, so it's a great little pattern. It's just that you've got this little scallopy edge there just to make it a little bit more interesting, and actually it's not a bad little size. So if you're going trick-or-treating with the kids, then take your own treats, because I'm sure then kids are not going to share them with you. That's for sure. So a lot of the sewing we're going to be doing on the front camera, which is quite unusual, but I will talk you through everything, and I'll show you everything on overhead, because I've got this very, very, very close-up camera here. I can't do another angle, so I'm sure you'll be all right with that. Going back to the pattern itself, let's make a start, for goodness sake, otherwise we'll be here all night. I've got all my bits and pieces. So I've got my flap and my lining, so I'm using the pumpkin lining as I did before. I've got my bag pieces here. Let me just take my pins out. This is my prototype, so that's not the pattern piece you're getting. So I've got 2 pieces of lining. Let me just move these out the way so you're not confused. So 2 pieces of lining with the darts already cut out. Okay, so that's all in the pattern. Let's pop that to one side. We're going to do that bit first. And then I've got the 2 pieces for the bag. So I've got 2 identical, okay, back and front. And I've lined up my strip in the centre in the hope that they might meet. But do you know what? I'm not going to lose any sleep if they don't. So that would be, you know, we're going to stitch that in just a little while. So if we go by the pattern, I just need to make sure I do this and I behave myself. Sorry for licking my finger. We're going to stitch the flap first. So if I bring that in, oh, wrong bit, this bit. So this is our flap. I mean, it's so dead easy. You'll love it. So right sides together with the lining and the outer. So you know the outer has already got the wadding on. The lining doesn't have anything. And you're going to stitch around all the sides except the straight ones. Well, the long straight one, I should say. Pin it if you like. It's not very often you'll see me pin, but I'm trying to be good. I'm trying to be good for you. So I'll move that down a bit. I won't bother with this. You're going to try and come up. Now, I'm going to leave you to decide what's best for you, but I can feel where the seam is on my fabric. Okay, there's my seam. So I can feel that under there, and I will try and get my needle on that seam to pivot to come round. That, what I would say, is probably your main thing that you want to try and do. So just feel here. If you go from this side, you might well sort of lift this up or feel it better on the wadding side. But I much prefer to work on fabric than wadding any day of the week. Right, so let's have a look. Let's just go back to the front camera. Got to remember we're working a little bit differently tonight. Only because I want that overhead, this side camera here for you. I've already got my sort of satin stitch foot on my machine, because that's ideal for this technique. I've just got to move everything a little bit so you can see my machine bed, which is all you need to see really. Just want to move a couple of bits and bobs. I've got a big desk and I always end up with this little squishy bit in the middle. Well, Kath can vouch for that. Right, so you can set your machine at a 1/4 inch seam allowance if you want, or use your guide. Whatever it is that you use, you're going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance if you can. I won't tell if you don't, if you go a little bit off-piste. So I'm going to just start with a little back stitch. Take my pins out. You know I don't like pins. And we're not going to... we're going to come down and do a fairly sharp 90-degree turn, but we're going to follow the curves as best we can. If you do a small stitch, let's say take it down to a 2, your curves, although they're not big curves, they will be better. They will be better curves. So I'm just feeling I'm going to go back. I'm just feeling for my seam, because regardless of what the fabric looks like, yeah, or where the points and curves are, really you want to pivot on that seam. We'll see when we turn it out. Pivot if you need to, coming around all of this. Try not to get it too pointy. Try to aim for a smooth curve. And I'm just feeling my seam again. It's quite easy actually, once you know what you're looking for, I suppose. So coming up, you can't see too much. I can move it in a little bit more, I think. There we go, a little bit more, that's better. And then we're coming around to that last little bit. I was thinking about this, and I was thinking actually the most important thing is that you see the buttonhole. So, just coming up this last bit now. Little back stitch to make it nice and secure. Okay, smashing. I'll keep that fairly close, I think. So let's have a look. There we go. So before we turn it through, if you want to, you could get your pinking shears on this and go all the way around with your pinking shears. Or you can do what I did in the pattern, which is to use some really nice sharp scissors and just take a V out at every point, and that will sit a little bit better. It's better to take some out, I have to say, rather than just sort of snipping into this, because once it's turned through, those snippy out bits will actually almost sit together, but you are going across those points there, and it always looks an absolute mess, doesn't it, because you've hacked it to bits. So you've done something like that. Can you see? I'll put my hands there, you can see. Just taking little V's out, and then we're just going to turn through. And because we've ironed all this on, because it's glued, it's nice. There's no sort of loose edges anywhere. It's really quite nice. You can forget about it. And then I just want you to really sort of smooth this out. So if you feel that you want to snip more of this fabric away, then please do, but just don't get too close, because you still want to have this, the strength. Now I'm not going to top stitch, two reasons. I don't think it needs it for a little bag like this, but also because I'm using cream thread, it would look a bit silly. If I thought really long and hard, I'd have put black thread in, but that's, you know, it's ridiculous thinking I was going to think at all. So if you get a little point, do you see the little pointy bit there? I don't know if you can see that. If you get that, that's where the fabric inside has not sat nicely. So if you wanted to, you could take some more out, and I'll just take it across like that, and try and get that to be a nice curve rather than a pointy curve, and that's not too bad. The other curves aren't so curvy, you can see, but that's still not how I would like it. So we'll tell it who's boss. I'll give it a little wriggle in a minute. I'm going to just put my iron on. I'm going to put it on a medium setting if I can. Gosh, fingers and thumbs today. And give that a little iron. Oh, Millie started barking. She likes to bark on cue, just after 7. That dog is a creature of habit. Mind you, I think we all are, aren't we? So do you see how I'm manipulating that curve in particular? So I want it to be a nice curve. I don't want any points. We're not making Mount Kilimanjaro. We're making a nice curvy purse. There we go. Give it a little bit of a press. Best press is good, of course. Look, see how it changes the colour. I don't know if you can see that on screen. But that changed it to a different tone of orange. Look, quite nice. And you can see I've just about got my seams where I want them to be, which is handy. And then just give the sides a press. I know this is the smallest mat in the world, but I've got the smallest space at the moment. And my bigger size, my 8x5 little mat, I cannot find. It's buried somewhere. So there we are. I'm happy-ish with that. I think I could do better there, but I'm happy with that. We'll just put that to one side now. So let's have a quick look at the pattern. Make sure I'm still following it. Okay. Okay. So we're going to work on the main bag now. So we're going to do the outer and the lining at the same time, just to save a bit of time. So what we've got to do is stitch these darts together. Okay, so all you're doing, let's move that one so you're not confused. You're just bringing those raw edges together of that little dart. Yeah, I'll put a clip in there so you can see it. And then on this side as well, in a minute, you're going to do right sides together and you're going to stitch. Now when you stitch, I wonder if my pen will draw on there. Let's see if it will. So when you stitch, there's obviously your point there, but you're going to go beyond it, and you'll see on the pattern it gives you a little bit of an idea, and you're going to take it beyond into a nice point. You're not going to suddenly cut it off at the point there. You're going to just, like a dart, and in dress or blouse or whatever, you're taking it beyond, and actually it's certainly more than a quarter inch. Sometimes it's as much as a half an inch, just to get that fine point. You don't want it to be choppy. It's one of those things you learn in dressmaking, that you make it really, really neat, really neat. So let's bring the machine in. Oh, I've got something on my, hold on, that's it. Got lots of things coming up on me on the screen. So I've shown you what I'm doing, so I'm not doing anything other than what I just said. So I know it's difficult because we've got that different angle. I'm not bothering with a back stitch, except in the point, and then I'm just going back. I'm not going lots of stitches, I'm literally just going back. Because this raw edge is going to be in another seam, so it's secure. We don't have to worry about back stitching. So we've got literally 8 darts to do, so we'll do them all in one go. If I were you, I would not go off your fabric. So although I said you don't want a clunky point, let's put it that way, you don't want to run off the fabric, really. You want it just to be the tip, the last stitch right on that edge. To be honest, we're not making a frock, we're making a bag. And unless you're using very plain fabric, you ain't gonna see it. So cut yourself some slack with that. There will be the perfectionists among you, I know. That's fine. You do you, I'll do me, as they say. Yeah. We all have different ways of doing things, and obviously it's how you've been taught, isn't it? You know, who taught you? Actually, who did teach you? let's have a show of hands. Who taught you? Was it your mum? Was it your grandma? Was it your school teacher, like me? Well, and my mum as well. Usually it's grandmas, isn't it? Or you had a bad experience at school and you didn't do any sewing after that. That's very common. I hear that quite a lot, really. It's a shame, isn't it? But I think, this is just my thought, if you have a natural aptitude for loving fabrics and I'm not going to say stitching, but loving fabrics, you may end up stitching. I think it's you're drawn to it. Okay, so what I've done is let's have a look. Grandma, yeah, grandma, self-taught. Oh, that's Lindy, self-taught. School teacher, grandma in school. Lynn, teach herself. Oh, thank you, Meryl. School teacher, Evelyn. My mum's name was Evelyn. My teacher. Oh, LJ says that's me, a bad experience at school. Oh, isn't that sad? It should not have been like that. Self-taught. As I wasn't allowed to do sewing at school, Yvonne. Why not? Why weren't you allowed? Why weren't you allowed? What would that be? Myself and Abby, that's nice. Oh, Cheryl says her mum. Sandy, my mum and school. Yeah. Oh, do you know, we're so lucky, aren't we, to have somebody with that patience to teach us, whatever it is, whether you're learning to drive or whether you're sewing. We're so lucky. Right, so I've stitched the darts on all of the pieces. So I've stitched them on the front and on the back of the outer, and I've stitched them on the lining as well. So now what I'm going to do is put my outer pieces right sides together. I'm going to keep you just there. And I'm going to stitch all the way around, okay, all the way around. So by all means, pin, use your clips. The one thing I would say, and you know I didn't get this quite right, is try and get your seams to match and try and get your darts to match. I'm not going to say anything, and I'm not going to come round your house and look. See what you can do. Just enjoy it. I think that's the main thing, isn't it? Would any, well, except unless it was your grandma or your mum, nobody would have said, oh, now sit back and enjoy it. You'd be like, ah. Can I enjoy this? This is so frightening. Sorry, a little dramatic there. Oh dear. So just come round your corners nice and gently. I've actually got this on quite a large stitch just to make my demonstrations a little bit quicker. I'm going to try and match up my darts, etc. We'll see. You've got a lot of where the darts are, try and get them either open or one way and another way, because there's quite a lot of fabric going on with the darts and the strips piecing as well. So try and what we call nest those seams, okay? Now I want to make sure that the top dart is going one way, so I'm just going to help it with my pokey tool, and then when I come down this end, I'm just trying to get them to match up. I'm not sure I'm going to get them to match up. We'll see. And all the way along. And this shape gives you a lovely, like I say, little puffy bottom. And we all love a puffy bottom. Perhaps we don't really want one, but we got one. So up the side, right up to the top, and do yourself a nice back stitch. Where the seam is going to be vulnerable, do a back stitch. And in actual fact, because we've cut into these strips, I'm almost tempted to say to you, run a little running stitch all the way around your seams just to hold all those seams in place, because where we've cut into the strips with our pattern piece, those seams are quite vulnerable. So I would say be very careful, treat it all with kid gloves. So that's our outer done. Let's turn it right side out so we can see what it looks like. Very nice. I shall be taking this trick-or-treating. Well, that's a better job than I did before. Let me show you. That's because I was concentrating. When I make up a sample, it's like, get it done, get it done. Right, so I'm going to do the lining. Now, what you need to do is leave a turning gap. So I would say stitch about, well, a good 1.5 inches. I'm just going to turn my iron off, down. A good 1.5 inches. So you're going from the top. I'll show you when I've done, because I've put it under the machine needle now. So come down, stop now, back stitch to make that turning gap secure, and you'll be proud of me because my sample has got a closed turning gap. Yes, I know, I'm just showing off now. So again, you're going all the way around. Now please, please, please don't worry about matching things up on with your lining. Nobody except your tissues and your phone are going to see whether you've matched up. If you're the perfectionist among you, you might want to. Just ease around those curves. They're not too bad, they're not too sharp, you know. And try and keep to the same seam allowance. And then the lining will fit the outer. Okay. So, there we go. So, there's the linings pieces stitched together, and I've left a turning gap just here, guys. Okay, it's probably about 3 inches actually. I never measure, I just go by how I feel on the day. It's about 2 3/4 if you want a measurement, but that is made with my little pumpkin fabric. Just be careful of directional fabric, that you get your direction going the right way. There we go. In fact, I will turn it so it's in the correct situation. Okay, so now we want to make the straps. So like I said before, in fact, let me just show you quickly on the overhead because you need to see this. That's it. I'll just keep this where we are because I want the machine. Just fold your strip in half. That is not a good example. Let's go for the other end. Ah, much better. So you're just folding your strips in half, sort of. you're making a crease right down that middle there. You can just about see my crease, and then you're taking the raw edges to the middle, okay? And to be perfectly honest, I would, can you see that there's a tiny little gap of about 2 millimeters between that each side? That's how I like it, because we're going to now turn those together, and that's our strap, and it gives you, well, I can't remember the measurement, and I'm not gonna worry about it, but that's obviously 1/4 of the width of what you've got, so somebody else work it out, I can't. And we're going to stitch along the 2 folded edges first, only because I want them to line up, okay, and then the folded edge second. If you run this through your binding machine, it's absolutely brilliant at getting a fantastic edge on that. So if you've got the Simplicity binding machine, do use it. Obviously I'm always lack of time, or at least give that a press so you've got a good edge to work on. But literally you've got a piece that looks like that. Can you see where it's just folded 2 long edges to the center, and then you're folding again, and we're going to stitch down both sides to make it really neat. So we'll just go to the front again and get that stitched. And then take your selvages off, because you're going selvage to selvage with this. So I'm going to bring those folds together so they're as neat as I can get. I'm using, like I said, now this is, I think I might have said in the pattern, go up to a 3 stitch, a 3 millimeters, a stitch length of 3, which actually is 3 millimeters, because we're just top stitching, and it's actually quite nice to see the stitch, okay. So because you've got it on a long stitch or a longer stitch, your machine will run faster. If you want to go slowly, turn your machine speed down if you want to, or shorten your stitch. Because if I turned my stitch down to, let's say, a 2, this would slow down quite a lot. I know that would make total sense to some people. Some people perhaps wouldn't even, it wouldn't occur to them. But it's true. But it's always good for me to use a long stitch, because it speeds up the demonstration, but you don't miss out on anything. Okay, let's get this done. So it's quite a long strip, but it's not an uber long strap. It's not a crossbody strap by any means. So I'm down to the bottom. I'm just going to pivot, go across, and come back up. Yeah, so it's not a crossbody strap. Oops, wiggly. So if you want a crossbody strap, I would add at least maybe another, perhaps even 15 inches. But what I would do is join 2 strips together and measure it on yourself, put it across your body and measure it on yourself. Because my Myra, my super duper pattern, everybody loves, including me, it is a long strap. I can't remember the measurements of it, and that, I suppose it could be shorter, but it sits perfectly on my hip, and that's what you want it to do for a crossbody. But this is not a crossbody. There's quite a difference. So I've gone down both sides. I'm just going to take my selvages off now. We don't want to see them. We don't work with selvages, guys, unless you're making a book. But my mum did a cushion with selvages. It was in here. I must have moved it. Right. So there's my strap. Okay. Now, in the pattern, I say to you to pin your front flap onto your bag and then attach your straps. You can do it either which way, but let's just show you how we're going to do this. Oh, you know what? This is nearly made. So let's just go on the overhead. So just for ease, just for quickness, if you like, and for goodness sake, don't don't twist your straps, just be aware of your straps. Now if you want to, you could open up that seam, yeah? Just open it up if you want to. Can you see okay? And I'll put the strap right in the centre of that seam. Okay, that's the seam, difficult to see because it's black, but I'm putting my strap right in the centre. I'm going to give it a pin just to hold it in place. And then I'm going to feel my strap round and take it up to the other side. Open up that seam again. Oop, that's it. And put that right down the centre. Okay. And pop a pin in. And do check your strap isn't twisted. I don't think mine is. I did do that the other week, didn't I? Was it in the gold grip? I can't remember now. Did it somewhere I had twisted the strap. I think it was last week, wasn't it? Oh, I can't remember. Anyway, back and front are identical, okay? So don't worry about worrying which is the front, unless one you've stitched better and you want that to be the front, but I don't think it makes a jot of difference. If you wanted to, you could put a little pocket on there and that could be your front. So let's just assume this is the back. You're going right sides together. Okay, you might think it should go like that because that's how it will look when it's done, but you'd be wrong. It goes like that. And if you can, which I didn't before, match up your seams, and we'll put a clip in. And if your excuse me, if your seam allowances are okay, etc., then that should match up. It's not too bad. But because you're sewing long strips together, there is a great possibility that your seam allowances might be out a little bit, but please don't worry. And then it's going to sit neatly here, and you're covering up your strap a little bit, okay? Just a fraction. Sorry, I've got lots of bits on my fabric. This is an old fabric, and yeah. So it's literally just a fraction you're covering it. Okay, so now we've got the straps pinned on and we've got our flap pinned on or clipped on. We're going to stitch that down so we can take all of these clips and pins away because, well, I don't like pins, as you know, and they can be quite dangerous. So let's stitch that. So I'm going to go all the way round for the reason that I said to you before. I'm going to start in the centre. I'm going to take my table off. Let's pop that in my bin. My bin's full, so it's holding it nicely. I'm going to pop that underneath because it's a nice size and I can pop it in. I'm going to do a seam allowance of 1/8 of an inch, no more. Try and keep to that if you can. You can use a walking foot. I don't think I've got mine on, but I'll do that. No, I have. And you're going to stitch all the way around the top, even though we're not stitching the lining in, and that's to keep those top seams from splitting open, and then you seize the stitching. So just if you do what I say, oh, that sounds a bit funny. Let's take that off. That's all right now. That's weird. Maybe it doesn't like that foot. Okay, so just come all the way around. Make sure that where that little bit of your flap overhangs the strap, it's the strap underneath. Okay, this strap underneath. So I know you can't see much, so I'm so sorry, but we're coming to the important bit soon. So I'm going all the way around, 1/8 of an inch. I think I need to clean this machine. Who's cleaned their machine lately? This sounds a bit clunky. I know I need to change the needle. I still haven't done that, guys. I know. Don't shoot the messenger. Do not shoot the messenger. I never remember. I remember when I'm stitching, I think, oh, I must do that, and then I think we're all the same, aren't we? Just try and keep that seam open, just to spread some of the load. And because we're coming up to the strap and the edges, your machine might want to push that strap, so use your pokey tool very carefully and make sure that you hold that down and feed it under your needle so it catches and it doesn't ruckle your strap, so it sits nicely, best you can anyway. And then you're going to come up to the edge of your flap and again use something just to hold it down. You know, if you like hand basting, hand tacking, then hand tack those pieces down. Hold on. Ooh, that's it. I'm just missing my 1/8 of an inch on the flap. I'm just trying to get that straight. Yes, we're okay now. It's moving. Okay, so look, there we are. So we've got the flap attached. Yeah, that's how it should look. It's not bad, but not perfect. We've got our straps attached as well, so they're kind of basted in place, and I've stitched all the way around the front 1/8 of an inch just to secure the seams where they join here and all the way around. Yeah, and now that little bag is absolutely solid as a rock. So now what we're going to do is pop the whole thing right sides together into the lining. So make sure, because you've got a long strap going on here, just get hold of your strap with your bag. Let's do it so you can see what I'm doing. There. And pop it inside the lining. And you know there isn't a back or a front, so don't worry, unless you've got a pocket, and then that's for you to worry about, not me. Just pop it inside. Give it a wriggle. Push it in. Make sure those straps stay inside. You can do it the other way around if you want. Whichever's comfortable for you. I'm not here to tell you how to do stuff, just the stitchy bit. And what you must do though is get your side seams sat on top of each other. You've only got the two, so you do one, turn it around, get that strap so it's sitting nicely, do two. There we go. I'll put the seam the other way. You can open that seam up again if you like and push it in, and your outer and your lining should fit fairly snug. Put more clips in if you want to, pin it, do whatever you need to do, but hold it together. And then we're going to stitch all the way around 1/4 inch. What you want to do is cover up the stitching that you've just done. So you want to come in that 1/4 inch or a little bit more if you feel that you need to. So it's just getting it under the machine, and if you had more clips and pins it would be much easier. Right, just be very careful that you haven't caught the strap in the top seam there. You know that the strap has moved and you're stitching some of it in there. I mean, all right, a quick unpick will do the job, but you don't really want the bother, do you? Right, let's have a look. How's everybody getting on? Is anybody sewing along? Oh, Chris says she cleaned her machine last week. Embarrassing. I know. I need to do mine. I can't even remember. Well, would it have been when we had our birthday week? That was end of April. Shh, don't tell anybody. And I use this machine every day. Don't tell me. Don't say anything. And I probably haven't changed the needle since then. Look, I'm the first one to tell you, clean your machine, change your needle. Do as I do. No, do as I say. We're all guilty. Come on, we're human. Let's see if anybody else is there. Oh, Tina says she's sewing along but falling behind. Oh, bless you, sorry about that. Yes, good point. Jackie says to Anita, I do use a longer stitch for speed when I'm demonstrating, so don't be put off by the fact that I'm putting this together quickly. It's because I'm using a stitch length of 3. You wouldn't do that normally except for top stitching perhaps, so bear that in mind. If I was to put my machine down to a stitch length of 2, it would be like tortoise speed for you, honestly. For anybody looking back on a video and they've used a slower stitch or a tiny stitch, honestly it's like looking at paint drying. Honestly, it's just awful. So I use a long stitch for speed. That's why I talk a lot and pontificate a lot, to allow you all to catch up. I do, it's quite true, it's deliberate. Right, turning gap. It's true. You're my first thought. If it was just me making this for me, I'd have been out wearing it by now. Right, so take your time. You don't want to completely wreck your fabric. Let's just bring it through. Right, maybe a bigger hole would be better. I think we're okay. Don't worry about it. I'm saying don't wreck your fabric, and I'm giving it a really good shove here. Come along. That's it. Got you now. That's it. Come on. Goodness sake. Right, so while you're in this situation, you can run this under your machine, and you can close the turning gap, which I will do before your very eyes. I need to bring my table back up. Something's got caught. I think my mat. That's it. That's it. It was sitting on a quilting clip. So I'm using white thread. Obviously you're going to use the thread that matches your fabric, perhaps. I don't ever backstitch on a turning gap. I do try to keep to my 1/4 inch seam allowance though. That is something I do try to do. And you can always use your iron to press this. There's going to be a few people shocked now that they're witnessing me closing my turning gap. It does happen from time to time, guys. Just not all the time. Let me just use my pokey tool to hold all that. There we go. And obviously you could hand stitch this. That's it. Okay, that'll do. Oh, but like I said, I never backstitch. It is what it is. Okay. So let's just trim. Now this is where you're going to get the iron, and you're going to give it a really lovely press. You're going to take your lining inside your little bag, yeah, like so. And you're going to press this seam here, the flap and the back. You're going to press that nicely, so it'll fold back nicely. You're going to, if you want to, you could top stitch around the bag, but obviously you're going to top stitch around the flap as well. If you do that, just think it through, or you're going to take it from the back and just go around the front. Like I say, give it a good press, and we're not going to do that. We're just going to kind of speed up a little bit. What time have we got? Oh, not too bad. So there we are. So that's I'm still not happy with this little bit here, but that's our little bag made, and you can see that the straps match the front really nicely. I think it kind of balances it out. Obviously it needs a jolly good press. The main thing now is that we do this buttonhole. So let's get all my bits and bobs in. It's important we see this nicely. So let's go to the overhead. So in the pattern it tells you what you need to do, but I'll talk you through it now. Sorry guys, I just had to get that out of the way. And just let's fold that back. Just use my fingers. I need to just make that a little bit better. It wants to go, it just doesn't want to stay there. So bring over your flap, and we're not stitching the button on just yet, but we want a fairly good idea of where we're going to put the buttonhole. And to be perfectly honest, let me get my button. I'm going to put it so it sits in that curve. So, sorry, so it kind of follows the curve like that. I think any further up it might look a little odd. That's up to you, but I think following the curve is quite nice. So what you're going to do, get your heat erasable pen or air erasable, water erasable, whatever you like. and hold your button down, and you're going to draw a little mark. I would say probably maybe 2 millimeters either side. Now I'm going to bring that up to the camera. It looks very funny from the front. I'm going to bring that up and show you the marks. I don't know if you can see. I tried to choose a fabric that we'd see. Oh yeah, you can see now. So it's about, let's make them bigger. They're about 1 millimeter or 2 bigger than my button. Ah, now you can see. Okay, I think we're happy with that. Just make sure they're central to your curve, so do give that another look before you start stitching. And then what we're going to do is that we're going to draw a line between those marks. Okay, so use a ruler so you know it's nice and straight. So I'm going to make those a bit bigger so you can see. They're fairly okay where they are, but I want you to make sure that that distance is the same. And then find the centre and just draw a line, and then make it a really nice line so you can see it. I mean, that to me is really bright. I'll just bring it up so you can see it again. And we're going to start here. We're going to come down this side here. We're going to go across here. We're going to pivot our work around, and then we're going to come down here. Okay, so this is where you need to pay attention. But it's easy, really. This is how I was taught. It works for me. So I'm just going to bring my machine in, and I'm going to alter my stitch now. I'm not going to bring you on the side camera just yet because it's very, very close, like I said. So I'm going to change my machine. In fact, let me get you on the old front camera. I'm changing my machine stitch to a zigzag. So whatever your machine is on zigzag, I'm going to have my stitch width, so that at 4.2. Now if you can't do 4.2 because your machine isn't that precise, go for a 4.5 or even a 4, but I would say go bigger rather than smaller. And I'm taking my stitch length, so the distance between my zigzags, down to 0.6. And that 0.6 will never change now. The only thing that would, the only thing that would change, I'm thinking this does it, is the width. Okay, good. I'm glad you're with me. I'm not sure I was then. So I'm going to bring you in on the side camera. Hopefully, well, you'll see, Anita. You'll see. Let's not answer the questions before we've done it. So I'm going to take you to the side camera, and I'm going to adjust so you can see. Hold on, I'm just getting the fluff off my foot. Now I'm actually using a satin stitch foot. Now there's a reason for that. You can see it's got a big hole there. If you haven't got one, don't worry, but it gives me great visibility, which means when I put my fabric under there with my lines, I will see it as clearly as you see it. Okay, I want you to pay attention to where your needle is. So at the moment it's on the right hand side. So it is a great view, isn't it? Hopefully you'll be able to see. If you can't, I will just turn the machine till you can see it, because I know pretty much what I'm doing, she says. So you're bringing your bag in. Yeah, now look, you can see my lines beautifully. So my needle is on the right. I want you to look where I'm going to put my needle. I feel like a school teacher now. So I'm putting my needle, let me just move things so you can see. I'm putting my needle on the right hand side of that line. In fact, let me take that off. There we go. Can you see? I'm putting it on the right hand side, and the first stitch we're going to do, I'm a little bit out, but you know, you get the gist. I'm going to do about, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want to take it over to the left. You can leave it on the right if you want, but let's do 5 what I call bar tacks. Now we're not going to go on the spot, it's not going to go on the spot because we've got the stitch length at 0.6. It'll go slightly down, okay, but only slightly. It's almost like a satin stitch. So let me see if I can put my foot back on. Bear with the hands getting in the way. Just need to try and get this satin, this foot back on. There we go. Right, sorry about that. I have to wait for the camera just to come into focus again. So, yes, now Jackie's quite right. So this is showing you how to make a buttonhole without a fancy foot. We've all got fancy feet. I don't have your machine. You don't have my machine. So this is the best way for all of us to be able to create a buttonhole. Okay, so let me just turn that a bit more. I need you to see this really well. I think that's about as best as I can do. I've got to shift a bit of stuff. There we go. So we're going to do 5 bar tacks across. Okay. So foot down. Okay, ready? 1. Oops, hold on. Have I got that set on that right? Yeah. I want to go a little bit further across. Just bear with, guys. Let's stick that down again. So I'm on the left hand side. It makes no difference. Just want to make sure you're clear. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or do 1 more for luck. So now my needle is on the left. You can see it's on the left of the line. You can see the line very clearly. So now we want to come down to the bottom here. We want to come down here. I do not want to stitch on that black line. That black line is eventually going to be my cut line. So I don't want to stitch on that line. I want to kind of kiss it, but I don't want to be away from it because you'll have a lot of fraying going on. On the other hand, I don't want to actually stitch on it. So I'm going to lift my foot up. I'm going to move my stitch zigzag, I'm saying wigwag, to 2. So I'm bringing my width down to 2 now, guys. You can see my needle moving. And now I want to make sure my needle is going to go in the middle there. I want to be very aware of how that's going to, where that's going to go. So I've got a stitch that I really need to get rid of. I mean a thread. Let me just get rid of that. So I want to make sure, now obviously once you've done this a couple of times you're not going to go this slow. But that needle, it's a tiny little zigzag now. You can just about see that first stitch and it's going to kiss that black line. Okay, so we're going to come all the way down. It's a little bit difficult at this angle. So I don't really want to go on that black line. And if I do, I can adjust it. I'm coming down to the bottom. I'm going to lift my needle up like that. And it explains that in the pattern. You are not going to move it. You're literally going to take your needle out of your work. You're going to put your stitch width on 4.2 again. You'll see my needle moving. And I want to make sure that the first stitch goes on my black line across. So there we are. I don't know how you can see that without. Okay, so that needle there is going to jump over to about there. Perhaps not quite as much as that, but it's going to jump across there. And then we're going to do another bar tack. So 4, 5, 6 if you want. So you've got to just set. Can you see it went over to the left, right, that will do me. That will do me. Okay, now I'm going to pivot the whole piece of work with the needle in. So you can see what we've done so far. And you might think, oh, that's not a very good zigzag. That's about what your machine will do. Your machine won't do a satin stitch. It will do something similar to that. I'm trying to replicate that. So now we've turned it, we're going to come down the other side. But that needle is not in the right position for me to start. That needle is going to go over here. Okay, because you can see it's sitting on the right hand side of my foot. So that first stitch, if I do that manually, can you see it's going to jump over to there? I don't want that. And that's why we take the needle out of the machine, out of the fabric. Right, I'm going to reduce my stitch width down to 2 again. You'll see my needle moving. And I want to make sure that my first stitch is going to be where I want it to be. Now look, that needle is still right of the centre. So I know that it's going to hit about there. Okay, it's not going to jump over here. Well, it's going to come down and then it will go over, which is exactly where I want it to be. All right, can you see those stitches there? So let's just put the needle down. Let's do a manual stitch. It's jumped across, so let's, okay. So you want it so when you come down, it's going to come down so it just kisses that black line, and then we end up where we started. I've just pulled that thread, there we are. So foot down, and you're just going to work your way along that black line again. Try not to go on it. Now look, it might sound really complicated what I've done. It is not. It's just a case of repetition all the time. So needle up. I'm holding my fabric so it doesn't pull my threads. I'm going to put it back to a 4.2 because I just want to do one last little bar tack just to secure my threads. So I'm putting the needle in, and just 2 little stitches is all I want, because I don't want to have that little bit of zigzag come undone. So if I move it really carefully, because this is so close up, everything is ginormous, we have now created a beautiful, beautiful buttonhole by hand. It's all about pivoting your needle, taking your needle out. It's about realizing where your needle is going to hit on the first stitch, either this side or that side. Yeah, it's only a tiny little stitch, and what you've got is a professional looking buttonhole suitable for a blouse or whatever. And you're going to now cut this. Now I don't care what you've been taught by anybody. I don't care that you've been taught to put a pin at the end of your buttonhole. That is not what we do, guys. Don't forget, I was a dressmaker. I made dresses for Harrods and Harvey Nichols. I know what I'm doing. So what you're doing is you're putting your unpicker, nice sharp one. The best one in my opinion is actually a Benina one. That's the best one I have ever used. Put your point in there, and you're going, I've got to get my hand in there a sec, and you're putting your point in there, and you're just going to take it to the centre ish. That's as far as you're going to go. Okay, then you bring your fabric round, trying to keep it in shot for you. It's like spinning on a sixpence. Then you're going to put your point in at the other end, away from your bar tacks. You're going to pop that in, and you're going to meet your hole halfway, and that has given you a beautiful buttonhole. Don't worry about those little frayed bits, because you can just snip those off. You'd get that if you used your gadgets, but that has given you a beautiful buttonhole. Absolute perfection. And if I can do it showing you, you can do it yourself perfectly adequately. You're not to worry. So I'm going to sew the button on, then we'll be done. I think we've gone over the hour, but I think it was really important that I made sure that you saw that. If you've got any loose threads, then do cut them off, make it nice and tidy. My machine, as you know, has a built-in cutter, and it really makes a bird's nest. It really does. But tidy it up as much as you can. Obviously, you know, I might have used black thread maybe, or orange even, I don't know. Use the heat of your iron to take the can you see how the iron changes the colour of the fabric? It's beautiful. Press that so it takes all the blue out. Okay, and then what we're going to do, we're going to sew the button on. So bring that over. I wouldn't take it so it's really tight like that. do that, but then take it back a bit. So about there. I think I'd be happy with it about there. So pop a pin in, pop it through the hole, take that away, just pop a pin in. You can make a little mark with your heat erasable. So we want it to be about there, guys. Do a nice big cross. So I'm going to use black thread. I haven't got much on my needle, so we'll do the best we can. I'm using double thread, so always, if you do a double thread or use an embroidery skein, couple of little, you know, 2 out of your 6 if you're using embroidery thread, because it sews quicker. So we're going to come up from the back. So I'll just do a few stitches just to hold it. And I've got a 4-holed button, so you can either go across or you can go, so you can either make a diagonal like a kiss, or you can do 2 bars. I'll leave that for you to decide. There's not right or wrong with that. There's lots of rights and wrongs, but not with that. So just try and keep in the right place. I'll just do another one there then, seems like it wants to come through that hole. You don't need to do a shank, because oftentimes you can build in a shank with your buttons. I don't think you really need to with this little bag. I think that's going above and beyond. So I would do at least 3 lots of stitches. I'll keep to 2 just so it quickens. I've used black thread because we've got a white button, but you could use white. I'm not suggesting for a minute you do what I do. Do something that's comfortable for you. There's lots and lots of different ways to do things, but just make sure you do fasten it off well, and make sure it's nice and secure. And then obviously you'll have pressed this but then what you've got is the perfect size for your button. Not too big, not too small, just right. Just right. There you go. So hopefully, she says, oh, sorry, shouting, hopefully you'll have taken that on board. So don't forget, we don't ever move the 0.6. It's only the 4.2 and down to a 2, then back to 4.2 and then down to 2, blah blah blah. I think I covered that in the pattern. Anyway, it does need a press. But there we have it. So we've got 2 now. We've got one that's pressed and stuffed, and one that needs a press. There we go. I think that's lovely. Might give that to my girls. Well, they might not want it, but I'll see if they want it. They can take it trick-or-treating, and then, like I say, you can put your own chocolate in it. Don't rely on them kids, because they don't share. I've learnt this over the years. Take a mini bottle of brandy in there, or sherry, whatever your tipple is. Have a little tin of something. We might be desperate. Right, there we are. So there is Bessie. I hope you love her. I'm sorry I went a little bit over, but I think it was necessary. You can always look back if you got bored and switched off. Right, so next week we've got our lovely Kath, who, as you know, is now my partner in crime. She's working alongside me very closely with everything gold, everything Lizzy, and everything Making It Monday. And we're working very hard together to make sure we bring you great content and useful content and fun and all of that sort of stuff. So next week, Kath will be demonstrating her Making It Monday project, which obviously if you've bought the October pass, you'll get on the Sunday. If you're gold, you'll get it Sunday night. And if you're a Making It Monday regular person, you'll get it sometime on the Monday morning, usually about 9ish, and then I can forget about it and not worry. So for £1, I think that's an absolute bargain, especially the demonstration on how to make a buttonhole. Even that's worth it, isn't it? But I do hope you go to the website and order yours. It's, like I said, only £1, and with the exchange rate with the dollar now, it's probably about $1.10, because it's just ridiculous our side of the fence at the minute. And I hope you make a few of these. I'd like to see them in the Making It Monday page. See if you've made any. Obviously, you don't have to make it in Halloween. Make it in whatever fabric you like. You don't have to do strips. You can make it in a solid fabric. I'll leave that up to you. Anyway, thank you very, very much for watching. It's been an absolute treat being part of your evening, and I will see you again. Well, I'll see the gold ladies on Thursday night. We've got a huge amount to go to again. I'm actually thinking of extending to an hour and a half because we've got so much to cover. So if you're a Goldie, I shall see you Thursday. If you want to join, we've got a 14-day free trial going on. Won't cost you a penny. For the rest of you, I'll